open that page, I'll search for my fix, find what I need in the deep dark abyss.
Guys, listen, I'm so blissed out on my summer vacation that I'm basically going to welcome you to AI Skeptics this week and then let Tom and Jake talk about stuff. And if anything, I'm just going to nod and make noise in the background drinking my wine spritzer. That's what's going on. So Tom, take it away.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on again. And, was it the last time I was on? At the beginning of June, we talked about IPOs, and we talked about how Anthropic and OpenAI were talking about their upcoming IPO, potentially 2026. But since then, and we made comparisons to WeWork about how WeWork filed for an IPO. People read the document, their disclosures about risks and their financials, and investors basically didn't love it. And so WeWork pulled their IPO, and that kicked off the long, slow descent into bankruptcy. They did eventually do some weird reverse IPO thing a couple of years later, but it didn't matter. They still ended up filing for bankruptcy. So I mentioned that because last week, OpenAI announced that they were thinking of delaying their IPO till 2027, which is like remarkably, they're tapping the brakes, which is remarkably similar language to what WeWork said back in 2019. And other companies do when investors basically puke all over their potential financials, the potential investment. So I'm not going to say that I totally called it, but it's interesting that it happened just weeks later, that the notion of actual disclosure of who OpenAI was and what their numbers were did not receive a super warm reception for 2026 anyhow with investors. And that's why they are tapping their brakes.
Is that the part where the potential investors puke all over the, prospectuses? Is that all done behind closed doors, or do people actually, is there any public version of that?
Is there any streaming channel we can go to see
the actual? But I'm afraid you just have to go to that Family Guy clip, which is a meme in finance of when people are reacting to ugly news.
But wait a second. I thought they were doing some kind of like low down secret double probation IPO where nobody got to see their financials.
Oh, no, you couldn't file. You could not do a public offering without financials. So I think what happened is they had filed confidentially that they were going to do it, but eventually they would have to disclose the numbers in the S1 filing, which is public. So I think that they were talking about their numbers and their risk factor sections and so forth with bankers and others, and the reaction was not good. That doesn't, tapping the brakes is potentially a euphemism for everybody hated it, but it's also, financial conditions are uncertain right now, and we're going to wait.
I mean, the other thing is that and I don't remember any of the details because again, I'm on vacation and very blissed out. But I remember talking to friends who pay attention to this kind of thing, who said that one of the reasons they wanted the IPO sooner rather than later, is that they're under some deadlines to pay back loans to people who have lent money to them. So they really need this IPO.
Well, all the early stage investors are putting that money in with the expectation that they're going to get it back plus an investment return.
Right.
And so, yeah, the way they're all buying equity stakes for the most part in the company. So until there's a public liquid market for selling the shares, they're stuck. So, yeah, they need an IPO. I don't know anything about deadlines. It's part of the business of VC land that, timing is uncertain as to when there will be an IPO. They would also, be able to do a public debt offering if they were a public company, like SpaceX did. SpaceX went public, and then the next week they offered some huge amount of bonds at what was nominally determined to be investment grade. And the market actually did not, even though the market liked the IPO, the market did not like the bond offering, and the price has declined on that. The SpaceX IPO has declined as well.
Do you think that the SpaceX, experience informed this pumping of the brakes by OpenAI at all?
It was cited, I think.
IPO.
I think it was cited in the New York Times article announcing the tapping of the brakes as a concern about how that was received. But even though, SpaceX went way up, they went public at 135, it went up to 200 or something, and has since come back down. But at the time of that article, I think SpaceX was still above the IPO price, $150 a share or something like that. So even though they used it as an excuse for uncertainty in the market, it's not a super compelling argument. Perhaps investors said, that's it. We have no more money for fly-by-night companies.
Relatedly, I feel like I just glance at the headlines on my vacation. I don't actually read the articles, but in my glancing, I've noticed way more articles about economists worrying about the bubble breaking or the bubble bursting than I see articles about how we're all going to be working for algorithms in the near future. I do feel like the tide is turning right now.
Yeah, well, mentioning that transitions me to my other thing that I want to talk about in the headlines, which is that in the past week or two, both SpaceX or Grok or whatever their thing is, and Meta have announced that they're selling excess compute capacity. And that's kind of weird. Why do
Isn't that the reason we're building all those data centers is for compute?
Yeah, why do they have excess?
There's not enough.
I thought that Oracle was mortgaging its entire future and the future of its merger and so forth to build massive more data capacity. Why do these guys have excess? Interestingly,
they have excess. Do they really mean that they have it? Certainly I won't get the company names right, but it's I think I saw that Meta was AWS's biggest customer. When Meta says it has excess compute, does it mean it actually owns some servers that are so powerful and they're not being used? Or it has, in one of these circular financing arrangements, acquired a bunch of compute that is not totally using? You know what I mean? Is this just another shell game, another round at the shell game?
I don't know enough about Meta was building stuff. So I think that it's in that, but they've also contracted for stuff to be built or purchased or whatever. And what this potentially says is that they bought more than they needed, and therefore they're going to sell it to other people.
I can believe that. I feel like everybody, all these big companies are making forecasts and bets on the future of their compute needs and probably buying the rights to a bunch of them. It's probably a very complicated financial system, actually, at this point.
Yeah, and contracting to build. Oracle has contracted to build billions of dollars worth of data centers, and CoreWeave, a very large client of Meta, has contracted to create a massive amount of capacity. On Meta's news, CoreWeave's stock price is now down 50% since that announcement because they're the ones that have been supplying Meta's excess compute, but they thought there was super strong demand for it, and now the market is maybe there's not demand for that.
Relatedly,
So now-
I also read an article about like Amazon, Facebook, like other like these big tech companies, Nvidia even maybe, who are just like trying to prod their engineers into using AI. They have leaderboards like who's using AI the most. And
Yeah,
you think
I
they
think-
wouldn't want that, but they seem to want that.
They thought they wanted it because it would promote faster adoption and training of the AI. But now, with the shift that a number of companies are going to, Microsoft and OpenAI and Anthropic, to token-based pricing, everybody's getting sticker shock from their new non-subscription priced AI use. And so a lot of other companies are like, hold on a second. We didn't budget for this. And I didn't save the quote, but there was one large CEO who said, right now, it's cheaper to use humans than to use AI for most of our tasks.
Wow.
And, that's like sort of a revolutionary concept in AI bubble land, because the prices have skyrocketed for, they've shifted to still significantly discounted, but actual usage-based fees. As
Right.
opposed to
They're token based rather than subscription based now. And that
We were
segues
saying
really
that, like-
nicely to my topic of the day, which is like there have been two somewhat skeptical essays that came out recently, one by the head of Microsoft, Satya Nadella, and one by a New York Times opinion writer, Zainab Tufekci. They're very different. Maybe it's unfair to put them in the same category, but Nadella, he might be less skeptical than he seems because a lot of people are critiquing his Twitter essay. By the way, I refuse to log into Twitter ever since Elon announced he was buying it. So I just simply will not do it. I can't access Nadella's manifesto except by reading other people's takes on it. So that's the way I consumed it. But he's talking about how humans are still the most important thing, and like the future of large language modeling isn't that people lose their jobs. And this is how I count it as an AI skeptic essay. But it's really also him being like, everybody should just do what Microsoft wants us to do, which is like, I guess, switch up which model you're using for which task, and like let there be an entirely healthy ecosystem of models. Like it sounded like the way he framed it made it sound like, oh, I've got good news. Like computers won't be taking over human jobs. But actually it was more like, here's how computers are going to be taking over human jobs by everyone paying Microsoft a lot of money to help do it. Like that seemed to be like his conclusion. I don't know. Did you guys take something different from it? That essay?
I saw a part where, I didn't read the essay itself either, but a commentary on it, and where he's talking, or where it talks about token capital is going to augment human capital and not replace it. Token capital being like the amassed knowledge that the AI systems have. But the conceit that he starts out with, or the premise, it seems like he's like, well, if this goes too far, then pretty soon it'll just be that AI, that one or a very few super intelligent large language models will really know everything about accounting and law and blah, blah, blah. Like I think there was something about they're going to eliminate the competitive moats that businesses have established by having real expertise in a particular domain. And he's like, that's the risk, that you have some mega AI model that is truly expert in all those things. And now all the companies have like lost their reason for existing and the thing that makes them, valuable. And that to me is like such an anti-skeptical premise to start from. And then he's like working back from that. How do we avoid that? Well, we break it up. It's not one mega model, but as you said, maybe it's specialized models. But I thought that the starting premise was well, not skeptical, and I sort of disagree. And like, I liked Tufekci's article as a antidote to that. I mean, she says the inherent flaw is that the models are not intelligent. They don't encode wisdom or expertise at all. They're probabilistic, and they're never going to be very good. They're always going to be jailbreakable. They're always going to make surprisingly dumb mistakes. So I kind of thought they were actually really distinct in that sense. Like Nadella is saying, what if it just becomes the expert in everything? And Zeynep is saying it'll never be the expert in anything, a trustable expert.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not a big tech CEO, and I don't have that kind of vast knowledge and expertise, but I kind of feel like he has no idea what law is when he says things like that, because law has always been at every TV show or movie shows office with lots of books in the background. There's always been access to information in law, tons of it, going back 100 years, 500 years, common law. The access to the information isn't what makes lawyers good at being lawyers. It's willing to fight for your clients. And that has nothing, I can't do that at all. Like people go out and hire a lawyer because the lawyer says, here's what I'm going to do for you, and here's what you can do. Or, I have been sued. How can you help me? And the lawyer explains what he can do. He's not saying, here's a book, and it says in the book, this is what you do. He's saying, this is what I will do for you based on my experience of doing these things. I have the expertise that other people don't. It's completely unrelated to expertise in a book that whatever a AI model would have.
Tom, I love everything you're saying, but every time you slam your desk, as
well, these things have to be emphasized.
No. I mean, okay, but like just to be the devil's advocate here, get it? Advocate, is, the idea is that everybody, the theory of this AI as lawyer is that everybody will have a ready-made eager lawyer saying, here's how we can defend you, or here's the case we can make. Everyone's going to have all the expertise and all of the best laid plans. And then I guess the competition will be like, who's going to actually like carry them out?
I guess what I'm saying is none of the good lawyers I've ever met or worked with ever opened a book when they made the case or to win a client. That's not how they didn't quote cases or anything like that. They made a compelling argument to the client for the client's individual needs. And, I have no doubt that ChatGPT will tell that to somebody, but, I have extreme doubt that they'd actually be able to accomplish it because it's a human skill.
I think I saw a third thing. It was not on our reading list, but a draft bill was released by Mark Warner of Virginia around AI agents and like a regulatory framework for AI agents that came out this week. And I was sort of thinking that maybe threads the needle between these two perspectives, like Nadella on one hand saying the AI, unless we do something, the AI will sort of become the expert on all these business topics. And Zeynep, on the other hand, saying it's never going to be expert level at those things. And where the rubber meets the road is like, let it try. Let it try to defend you in court. Let it try to make a diagnosis. And of course, people are already letting it try. And there was like a good, I forget which of the many articles talked about a Chevy dealership allowed a chatbot to like, do some sales online, and it sold SUV to somebody for $1. And it was like, this is a real deal. This is legally binding. No takesies, backsies, said the chatbot. The article didn't say if the person got to actually drive away the SUV for $1. But the point is that Warner's bill although in the little write-up I saw, it didn't address the question of liability of agents. It just begins to think about agents, AI agents, as a digital product that can take action on behalf of a person or I guess a legally relevant entity. And to me, that's where it's going, right? Like, can it be an expert? Let it try. And then we socially need to have a plan for whom to punch in the face, as we've said on previous episodes, when it goes
I
wrong.
love that. I will also just point out that I know this is off topic, but it's just one of my favorite topics, so I'm going to bring it in, which is like, if you're wondering about the possibility of a future dystopia where the computers take over and kill us all, like that is definitely preventable, and the way to prevent it is to not give the computer power.
Yep.
And by like developing this notion of an agent, we were like, go ahead, buy me a new house. You have access to my bank account. Like, what the fuck, people? Don't. How about no? How about don't do that? Like, you're giving it too much power. I just wanted to finish off my topic. One of Zainab's examples, which I think is a good one for a couple reasons, of like why AI just isn't very good at stuff, was I guess Instagram, or is it Instagram that was like customer service line was chatbot, like was made into chatbots, and gave away the security code for a bunch of Instagram accounts. Ended up divulging way more information than any 20,000 people, including like a former Obama official and blah blah blah. And her conclusion, which I think is completely right, and it's completely under discussed, is that the kind of mistakes that AI chatbots make are different from the kind of mistakes that inefficient or incompetent people make. So when people are like, oh, like computers are going to replace humans, they're like, oh, they ask the question, in the next breath, they say, are they good at their jobs? And like, at the end of the day, that's what we're talking about. Are they going to be good at lawyering? Right. And we have through much information, embodied knowledge of seeing people be bad at their jobs all of our lives. And Tom, you as a lawyer, seeing people being bad at lawyering all of your life. You have a notion of what being a bad lawyer looks like, but we have no idea what the kind of fuck ups that are going to happen when AI agents become lawyers. Like when they're endowed with the power of somebody being somebody's lawyer. It's like, we can't even imagine it because it's a different kind of mistake. That I find that an interesting kind of tongue twister or like brain twister to consider.
It's unanticipatable.
Yeah.
You can't put a manager above it and say, for X, Y, Z, you have to come to me, because you can't even anticipate what it's going to do.
Right. I mean, it's like, we just think a bad lawyer is somebody who doesn't know the law. That's how we think about it.
We're going to learn how, over time, we're going to learn the shape of they call it like jagged intelligence, right? That's the one positive spin way that it's talked about. Oh, it's got a jagged intelligence, so it makes, surprising and weird mistakes. Like, we're going to learn how to deal with that jaggedness, but it's going to be pretty bizarre. I was thinking about the way that people thwart facial recognition. Have you seen these, like, it's necklaces that have a little reflector, or it's a shirt that's all pixelated? Those are, in digital times, that's a disguise. We're used to thinking of a disguise in, like, me personally, in like a caper movie with a, whatever, some type of mask or a hat. But like, we have to update our notion of a disguise because of the technology involved. So the same thing, we're going to update our notion of oversight or what mistakes to look for. But it's going to take a long time because our whole cognitive architecture is built around the kind of mistakes people actually make in the world. But I wonder what that's going to look like. What Tuvneki says it in her article, like, the best guardrails we have now are people trying to write down common sense or expert guardrails, and like write them as prompts. And we're not that good at it because, we actually, I don't know, it's hard to write down how to be a good lawyer. But eventually we're going to get better at finding and addressing the mistakes. But I think it might look totally surprising. I have no idea.
I love the idea of, just as a prank, really, because I'm not actually a scam artist, but just becoming a workaday scam artist to start scamming these chatbots. Because some really smart, enterprising person was like, I'm going to get this Instagram customer service agent to give me like the passwords to Obama officials' Instagram accounts. Yeah. And they did it. And that must have been like a lark. But
or car
also
for $1. Yeah.
Yeah, probably a Mechanical Turk job or something. Anyway, Jake, we've got one more topic. What is it?
Yeah, I'll do our last topic. It's different. It's AI adjacent. So I read an article in the Times just yesterday about some scientists, like biological scientists, that have invented a new thing called a spud cell, and it's made totally synthetically in a lab. But it's like a cell. It can eat and grow and even divide and make other cells. So the headline is like, scientists have created something that's almost alive, maybe alive. And what I thought was interesting about it is, first of all, just that kind of headline. And we've talked on this podcast about anthropomorphizing AI. Is it alive? Is it conscious? So here's another construction that is maybe alive. The article talked about it pretty differently. At first, when I first read it, I thought, hey, this is, really different. Overnight, the skepticism kicked in and I was like, this might be just, day zero of the hype cycle around this thing. But I wanted to read out a couple of quotes a couple of snippets from the article just to give a flavor of how it's written about. Life is not binary, said Kate Adamala, a synthetic biologist who led the research. That's why I'm hesitant to call this alive. There's no clear line as much as we would love it to be. And then what are they doing with it? Rather than patent it, she and another scientist are organizing a community of scientists to focus on making spud cells more fully alive and adapting them to new kinds of experiments. They and their colleagues have founded a nonprofit research organization that Dr. Endy estimates will spend hundreds of millions of dollars on the effort in the next decade. Hundreds of scientists are expected to join. And finally, they use a really fun soup metaphor to talk about the actual ingredients to this cell. And they say the first step was to create a broth of the molecules necessary for the cell to operate. After mixing these ingredients into a soup, they added building blocks of membranes. They picked 36 genes for basic jobs like copying DNA. So this idea of like a soup and the kind of randomness and soupiness that goes on inside that pot was like in real contrast to me to some of the narrative around AI. We carefully built this memory piece. There's just so much more in this article of deference to, the miracles and mysteries of what makes life. And I thought I'd like to see more of this tone in writing about AI.
I was thinking that we must have read 10 white papers on is AI conscious back in our reading club days. And I would so much rather read one about this cell than about that stuff. It's so much more, I don't know, science-based, I guess, or just feels so much more tangible. Like, oh, we can actually debate where the lines are.
It's like, there was an essay, which I really enjoyed, and I'm going to find it and add it to the liner notes for this podcast, but about like, it was like a good skeptical author talking about when will I believe that AI is conscious? And it said things like, when it's like, first acts like a one cell organism, and then it develops the ability to work in concert with other types of multi-celled and then it, eventually after a long time and development, it has certain types of cells that specialize into things like ears, we need evidence, people. We need to build up over time, like a lot of evidence that things are progressing towards a consciousness, in a discernible way. It doesn't have to be exactly the way we did it, but it has to be a way. There has to be a path where you're like, yeah, oh my God, it got there. Oh, look, it got to the next level. It's amazing. Oh my God. Now it can like feed itself or whatever, it's got opposable thumbs. I don't know. But like, the point is that like what we have instead is like, well, it didn't make any sense and it made all sorts of mistakes, but now it's like the next day it's conscious. Like suddenly, it's just, there's no evidence. There's no buildup. And this is much more that tone, which is good.
Like you're saying, what is the evidence? What are the benchmarks? In the Spud Cells article, they actually knew they were onto something when they took an earlier version of the Spud cell that was less capable and a newer version, which was better at eating. And so it could get more like stuff that helped it grow. And they put both kinds into a test tube and they let them compete for 5 generations. And by the end, the new, better eating kind had dominated the test tube. So like the benchmark exam in that case was competition in a real test tube, like competition for resources in the real world of those Spud cells. So yeah, like how do we benchmark those things? And like it actually led me back to the Tufneki article a little bit. She says in her article, like, why have we come so far? Why has the hype bubble got so big despite this, critical shortcoming of AI? And her answer is because it talks to us in natural language and we can't, and it's irresistible. And,
right.
That's been my hobby horse for a long time, but like,
just as the way it makes mistakes is different from the way we expect humans to make mistakes. The way it is seemingly intelligent is different from the way we expect people to be intelligent.
But it trades on the same currency of natural language. So it fools us over and over again. And like we continue overestimating it because, and we've seen this, right? Like you say, hey, you made this mistake and it comes up with immediately with a very convincing apology and I'm never going to do it again. And we just like can't disregard that as much as we would like. That's going to be part of the learning of mistakes, is learning how to completely ignore something that sounds sincere when it's said by an AI.
Humans do seem to like to be told stuff. They are optimistic, gullible, whatever. And it's just sort of a remarkable metaphor for the political environment, but that's a different topic altogether.
I like making it apologize for being right. I've said this before, but my favorite thing is to be like, hey, no, 2 + 2 isn't 4. Why did you tell me that? And it's like, oh, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
It just like proves how artificial its apology is and the fact that I can't punch it in its nose. Well, thank you guys for joining me on my vacation. I hope you've enjoyed a little bit of upstate New York via
Thanks for
Riverside
down from the ether for a few minutes to visit us. Go back.
I trust me, I'm cutting this short because I'm going back. And please join us next time on AI Skeptics.
See you next time.